think something too, one thing with the soil genome side is like understanding that if it's present, like I thought I read this in a book one time, like Fusarium, under the right conditions, can have a positive benefit to the soil biology or the soil food web per se. But on the same side, if other things are expressed or if the environment changes, it becomes the Fusarium that all of us know and don't enjoy.
Yeah, it becomes aggressive in that environment.
Yeah.
It's the way those genes, they express themselves, and they express themselves based on the environment they're in.
Yes.
That's why, people want to use fungicides, or lately we've been working with some trichoderma, and they'll use that for phytop, they'll use it for pythium, rhizoc, fusarium, any of the water molds.
Okay.
But it's like you bumped your head, like why do you... The problem, if you have some of these water molds, is the growing conditions.
Yes.
So if you have waterlogged fields, we've been working in the valley, in Central Valley, Rio Grande, Texas.
Yep.
And citrus, grapefruit mainly down there, and Phytophthora all over the place, And they want to spray Ridamil. They want to spray, now they want something else. So we've been using phosphites, trichoderma, things like this, because they want to kind of break it up. But yes, here, buy pesticide all day long. Go ahead. It's none of my business. But why don't you just change the production? Maybe we'll grow, we do a lot of work in Southeast Asia, and they grow a lot of citrus, or durian. That's a cool fruit. It smells bad, but it makes like maybe a 10-kilo fruit this big. It'll kill you if it fell off the tree, and it's spiky. And
what was it called again?
Durian.
Okay.
Oh, and it stinks. You're not allowed to bring it into hotels because it smells so bad. There's like little signs. Here it says no smoking cannabis in your hotel room. Uh-huh. But in Asia, it says no durian. It's like, where am I?
That's their biggest worry right
there.
Oh,
yeah. But what we're doing is we're planting trees on mounds. We're trying to keep the conditions correct so that the roots aren't wet, doesn't have wet feet. We're managing our irrigation better. I mean, to bring this over to the U.S., there are fields that maybe you should tile. Maybe we start to work there. Let's start looking at the pH of your soil. If you're in the alkaline area, maybe we do start using sulfur. Or if you're in these super acids, maybe you do need limestone. Let's try to balance the field. We'll get productive growth. But you can't replace agronomy with pesticides or with, some Bacillus subtilis or, whatever it might be. Yeah. It's a system. So you have to change the environment to favor the correct biology in the soil.
Well, and like you said, you talked about the pesticide side, and we even talked about this at lunch today, was the idea of there's a lot of things, soil health, that's a negative. A lot of things in agriculture that you do is a negative, right?
It really is.
So really the question is, if it's a tool in the toolbox we have to pull out, what's the fastest way we can counteract that to keep the system moving forward and so it's not a longer-term detriment? And I honestly, I think most soil health people would say, yeah, do we prefer to not hurt our soil? 100%. But I'm also going to say, if your soil doesn't have oxygen, a fast way to get oxygen into the system, a little tillage.
Oh, man. And
they can make that plant make a switch, and you can see it within 12 to 18 hours.
Tillage is the enemy in some, depends on your mind and what your trying goals are, but you have to use all of it.
Yes.
I mean, and in the pesticide world, we'll call it integrated pest management.
Yep.
And you're trying to minimize the environment, you're trying to minimize the host, you're trying to minimize everything to control. So your farm is really like an integrated farm management, and there are times when we need to use tillage.
Yep.
And here's a good example. We were in the pivots in the Panhandle, and you probably got. I mean, pivots are amazing, right? and you got the big circle at 160, and then you got these little patches that are huge on the sides. And we were starting to run into this guy, certified organic, so our hands are tied. But we started to run into thistle. And you're not. What am I going to do with it? I can't even go out there and tell the guy to pull it. I mean, you just can't. So we had to switch into moldboard. And, this field was very well documented, and we just did it in the strips where it was. We actually did this was no-till, trying for the Holy Grail, no-till organic. And what we did that year, we ended up increasing the yield where we used the moldboard, and we increased it. It was something like 25%. And it was classic, release from von Liebig's. We cycled the nutrients. Yep. We got that air into the soil. We killed the thistle, and we got this giant release in yield. It was a night and day difference. But we're also monitoring everything else for organic, right? Yeah. So we're measuring the carbon. We're measuring the organic matter. In just one, it's not even a year, it's a season. And these wheat crops are so short anyway. We're really talking about probably 4 months.
Okay.
We lost 1% organic matter from that one pass.
Wow.
So in that case, we traded the organic matter we had built for a quick yield that year. Yep. That year yield does not carry on.
Yep.
You quickly absorb all that other stuff.
Yep.
We did control our weed problem. This story doesn't have an answer, but it shows that you have to focus,
It's give and takes.
What are we growing today? And we want it all, but some days we have to spend some organic matter to fix our problem so we can keep on going in the right direction. Maybe, and I hate, one step back to take 3 steps forward.
Yeah. Well, and being okay with that at times. And honestly, I think there's probably a silent majority in agriculture that would agree with every statements that we're making. I could be wrong too. Oh, well.
Well, you want to talk about easy things that we could do, and it has nothing to do with you having to compost anything or us having to buy bugs in a jug. Just reduce your chemical fertilizer. Well, one of the biggest correlations we found in that study that we did with the different fertilizers, we had a strong correlation in R value. It's it's the probability that it matches the true response.
Okay.
Really, It was really well correlated.
Yep.
Salt. So we were measuring the salt content of the different inputs, and the saltiest, the highest electrical conductivity, that gave us the biggest reduction in soil diversity, the biology of the soil. So anything we did to reduce the amount of salt we put into the field increased the health by all effective standards today, the diversity of that ecosystem. And there were ways to trick it. So, working with some of the more soil applied things, you're adding a lot. One, obviously, cut the rate. Maybe we just do 80% instead of 100. And, we didn't suffer at a 20% reduction. But also we were adding things like humics, different carbon sources, sugars, some amino packets. We make foliar micronutrients, and we have chelates, you know. So, and then the chelate, we react it with the oxide or the salt, whatever, you don't need to, anyway. But we would take what I call the naked chelate, and it's really just the chelator that we were going to mix in with the to make our fertilizer.
Yeah.
And we would add this to the fertilizers, and what a chelate does, or humic acid does, or even some of these sugars and carbons and fulvics do, is they wrap the salt, they wrap the metal, and it hides the charge, and it effectively protects the diversity. So you can trick it by adding a little bit to your tank.
Yeah, mask it a little bit to a sense.
Yeah, and just try to make it soft. Think about a baby, right? You know, well, what would it like? This is gentle, this is not.
So one thing, I don't know why, you started saying the words.
Guys, if you like the information that you've seen so far, go ahead and check out the full-length podcast on our YouTube channel. Be sure to subscribe there. It's also on all the major podcast platforms. We're constantly dropping info and more content on all the social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Check it out for a lot more content.